Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Starkey Formstead. So, my name is Samantha. The video I have for you today is absolutely mind blowing, and I'm so excited to share this with you guys. So, the title of this video is No One Has Ever Left the Earth's Atmosphere. I'm not only going to prove it to you with science, I'm going to prove it with the Bible. Now, this was kind of mind blowing for me because having been a teacher and having spent, at least 20 to 25 years of my life in some form of education, from going to school to wanting to be a school teacher, when people say astronauts, you assume what? That they went where? They had to have gone to space, right? Isn't that what astronauts do? They go to space. But what if I told you that in the last few years, they have been able to prove that no one has ever actually left the Earth's atmosphere, the upper, highest levels of Earth's atmosphere? Now, most of us were taught this, okay? We have the Earth. Yeah. And the Earth has an atmosphere. And what do astronauts do? They leave the atmosphere. Well, guys, that, if I can, is wrong. It's wrong. So I am going to show y'all today everything that I learned last night. And I hope it is as amazing for you as it was for me, because I had trouble going to sleep last night. I was so excited about this that I literally went from my husband to my daughter going, do you know that no one has ever left the Earth's atmosphere before, ever? And they looked at me kind of like, what about astronauts? And I'm like, astronauts have never left the Earth's atmosphere. Never. They've gone to the upper layers. They've shot nuclear weapons. You can call it an atmosphere. You can call it a globe. You can call it a firmament. But there is something encompassing the Earth that does not allow us to leave. And I'm going to prove that to you today. Please hit the like button. Drop your name over here in comments. Let me know who you are, where you're watching from. I want to hear everybody's opinions on this because it's important. Now, this is a little scientific-y, but trust me when I tell you, you want to hear what she's got to say.
Is starting about 80 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and those who cross that line officially become astronauts. Okay, so the definition of space is up in the air, but what even is the atmosphere? Yes, it's the bubble of gases that shield and insulate the Earth from the aggressive radiation of the sun and the cold, dark depths of space. But like most complex things, it's got layers. The troposphere, with all our fun weather and necessary gases for breathing and surviving. The stratosphere, where commercial airlines fly when possible because there's usually less turbulence. The mesosphere, where most meteors burn up and the highest layer at which clouds can form. And then comes the thermosphere, which is where that tricky Kármán line lives. And this is where astronauts begin to experience weightlessness and is where the ISS orbits. That means that technically our most commonly defined line of where space begins is still in Earth's atmosphere. And then finally, there's the exosphere, that final layer between us and outer space, made up of super spaced out hydrogen and helium atoms, slowly dissipating out to nothing, up to 200,000 kilometers away from Earth's surface. Or so we thought. We actually haven't previously really known where the exosphere ends and outer space begins. We just know that those extremely sparse gases gradually fade out into a vacuum. But a team of astronomers has recently dropped a total bombshell. When the cloud of gases in the exosphere reflects the sun's UV light, it creates a luminosity, a glow that we can see called the geocorona. These new observations of the geocorona indicate that the exosphere may extend up to 630,000 kilometers away from Earth, a distance that includes the moon. So technically, the moon is in the Earth's atmosphere. This revelation is thanks to an instrument called the Solar Wind Anisotropies Instrument, or SWAN. Swan was able to measure and analyze the full extent of the geocorona, making us think about our atmosphere in a whole new way. See, sunlight interacts with the hydrogen atoms of the exosphere at a wavelength called Lyman alpha radiation, which is something astrophysicists can measure when looking at cosmological structures in deep space. Observing Lyman alpha radiation can tell us about the distribution of matter in space and help us think about how the universe expanded. It's also a wavelength that's absorbed by the inner layers of our atmosphere, so we can't observe it from Earth. But from Swan's position in space, it was able to see and measure both general Lyman alpha radiation and the geocorona, which extended far beyond what we were expecting.
Yes,
so
it
while
does.
this discovery is remarkable in many ways, not the least of which is that technically no one has ever left Earth's atmosphere, it won't change space travel for us in most practice.
Okay.
Air Force.
So there it is. They literally admitted it. Not one astronaut has ever left the Earth's atmosphere. The moon is within the firmament. Why is this important? Why is this important? Because the Bible proves science, my friends. Genesis 1:17. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. Go back one verse. Genesis 1:16. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. All my life, I've read Genesis. I taught creation to the children in my Sunday school, and yet somehow, up until I turned 50, I did not really understand. I read it, but I didn't read it. Do you understand what I'm saying? I read it, but I didn't understand it. God told us that he created a firmament to protect us. And within that firmament is not only the moon, but the sun. Not one astronaut has ever left Earth's atmosphere. Not one. Imagine that. Because all your life, when you were taught about space exploration and astronauts, where were they going, guys? They were going far, right? They were going to leave the Earth's atmosphere. That's how they led you to believe that. Right, Jason? I must not have understood it either, because when it sunk in last night, what this lady was saying to me, she flat says it. Not one astronaut's ever left Earth's atmosphere. The moon, they're now going to go ahead and admit it to you because people have telescopes. They can see it for themselves. They can see the firmament. Now, I know that sounds a little crazy, but folks, I'm serious. People are now recording the firmament.
So I have found that when I do super long exposures on any bright, really, really bright star or planet, it reveals this grid pattern. So I think what's happening is this scope is so powerful, and it's got such a fast focal ratio that when I do these long exposures on these really bright stars, it reveals some sort of a grid pattern. This is obviously from the firmament. I know you guys have saw Hunger Games, and when she shot the arrow and hit the dome, it revealed a similar pattern. Same thing in the movie King Kong. Guys, they put the truth in plain sight, knowing that most people will never see it. This is Jupiter, by the way. This is a 30-second exposure of Jupiter. People actually think that that's another world and that these stars all around it are moons. I'll zoom back out here so you can see the full shot. Whoop. Get Zoom back in on here. Yeah, that's Jupiter, guys. 30-second exposure shows you how bright Jupiter truly is. Wrong way again. Look at this. What in the world? That's not the camera, guys. This is a high-end camera. Let me show you. This is a Canon.
So he goes on to show you how expensive his camera and his telescope are. And he's like, look, I'm telling you, the grid patterns you're seeing is actually the firmament. So I can prove to you that the sun is also within the firmament from NASA itself. Because last night I watched the newest drone that they have sent up. Did I delete that? Surely Sam did not delete that. Give me 1 second, you guys. I'm working with an iPad and a phone and a computer because I'm super excited about what I found, you guys. And I really want to share that with you. Okay, so I must have deleted it. But anyway, last night NASA was showing their newest, I guess, drone telescope that they shot to the sun. It's the furthest anyone's ever gone. It took it years to get there. It's moving at hundreds of thousands of miles a minute. No, I'm not exaggerating. Look it up yourself. I watched it. And it's circling the sun, taking information from it. So that tells me that the sun, because the Bible tells me, but the science tells me that the sun is also within the firmament or the dome or the exosphere, whatever word makes you comfortable. I'm okay. This is a hard transition for your brain. I understand it. I literally ran around my house like a fool last night going, oh my God, no one's ever left the Earth's atmosphere. Oh my God. You can't. You're trapped here, folks. There will never be a human that gets off this planet and truly through that firmament. No one will ever be able to do it. Now, the government has tried. And yes, let me make a point here. We could have gone to the moon. Why? Because it's in the firmament. A lot of people want to debate that. We've never gone to the moon. Actually, we could have because it's in the firmament. So we could have easily gone to the moon. We just sent a telescope drone thing to the sun. So there is some possibility of movement in space. But as for going to another galaxy, I guess that's why they're trying so hard to come up with a wormhole technology, because you legitimately would need it to get through the firmament, because you're not getting through the firmament without some form of wormhole technology, folks. It's simply not possible. The firmament is temporary, and we're going to talk about that. So don't go anywhere, because I truly am fixing to make all of you sit down and reevaluate everything you've been taught. I taught the galaxy and the solar system and planets and moons and stars and moon phases to kindergarten and first grade for years. Like, I always loved it. Yet, in my mind, when I thought an astronaut goes to space, I saw in my mind a person floating millions of miles above the earth, completely separate, the tether broken from earth to space, when in reality, they are only within the upper layers of the Earth's atmosphere. Nobody and nothing has ever left the Earth's atmosphere yet, which also begs to differ. If no one has left the Earth's atmosphere, this stuff about aliens would be impossible for them to enter the Earth's atmosphere. That just clicked in my brain. I'm just curious what you guys think. So let me show you guys what Project Fishbowl. Think about the name. Okay, remember when the CIA and the government's dealing with these secret, top secrets, like James Bond kind of nonsense, top secret projects. The way they name them Okay. Fishbowl. Imagine right now, all of you, right now, fishbowl. Pop it in your head. Why? Why would you name a nuclear device test to see if you could shoot a bomb into outer space Project Fishbowl? Because they know. They know they can't get through the firmament. Please take 1 second, folks. Hit the like button for me. Drop over in comments. Tell me who you are and where you're watching from. And Jeff Walk just said, it sounds like a prison or something. Basically, it is. We are trapped underneath this firmament. And trust and believe, governments and humans for as long as time has been, have been trying to get through the firmament, and they cannot. This is what it looked like when they shot the first nuclear bomb at the firmament. Right? They shot a bomb that was 300 times stronger than the nuclear bomb that hit Hiroshima. 300 times stronger. They tried multiple times to get these bombs into outer space. And when they finally got one, as far as they could, and it actually detonated, the repercussions were horrific because they can't get through the dome. It does. It looks like a splash of water. It hit the firmament or close to it and just spread like a smoke. You ready to watch like an actual thing about it? It's called Operation Fishbowl.
Years of planning before the U.S. Army was truly prepared to nuke space, but the time would finally come with Operation Fishbowl in 1962, same year as the Cuban Missile Crisis that almost ended human civilization as we know it. Probably just a coincidence, though. Anyway, this was about more than just a Cold War arms race pissing contest. Fishbowl was a joint effort between the military, the Atomic Energy Commission, and the Defense Atomic Support Agency. This was about continued investigation of the potential for high-altitude EMP, the interaction between radiation from the blast and the Earth's magnetic field lines, plus the effect of all this on radio communication. The fishbowl tests were monitored by a large number of surface and aircraft-based stations in the wide area around the planned detonations and also in the southern hemisphere region of the Samoan Islands, which was known in these tests as the Southern Conjugate. The idea being that fallout from an explosion over Johnston Island in the northern hemisphere would get caught up in a magnetic field line connecting to Samoa in the southern hemisphere, which would create an aurora linking the two island regions. Looking through the actual results of Operation Fishbowl, they were pretty hit and miss on accomplishing their objectives. It's actually kind of shocking just how often they botched some of these nuclear tests. We're truly all lucky to be alive. Anyway, the first planned test was codenamed Bluegill. This was June 2nd, 1962, and the warhead was launched from Johnston Island on a Thor rocket just after midnight. The missile was promptly lost on radar tracking, so they knew that they had just launched a nuclear weapon into space, but they didn't know where exactly it was. Luckily, the flight termination system was still connected and the missile was destroyed. That doesn't mean that the bomb went off. It was still in safe mode and the debris just fell into the ocean. Attempt number 2 was codenamed Starfish. This was a couple of weeks later on June 19th. Another Thor missile launched from Johnston. This one flew for 59 seconds before the rocket engine failed, and the missile broke apart at around 30,000 feet, raining down plutonium-contaminated debris onto the island and surrounding water. Undeterred, the military pressed on with Starfish Prime on July 9th. This time, the Thor missile would carry its 1.4 megaton thermonuclear payload all the way to an altitude of 250 miles or 400 kilometers above the Earth's surface, where it would successfully nuke space. This would go down as the largest nuclear weapons test ever conducted in outer space. The thing about a nuclear explosion in space is that it does not look anything like what we generally picture a nuclear explosion to look like. There is no mushroom cloud because there's no dirt to get pulled up into the air. There's no fire because there's no oxygen to combust. But there is still an intensely bright light. It grows outwards from the detonation in a round spherical shape until it starts to gradually feather off at the edges into these short pearly tendrils. It's like some type of sea creature or a cactus. It's kind of beautiful until you remember the terrible consequences of what you're looking at. The EMP generated by Starfish Prime was significantly more powerful than the scientists involved had been expecting. So much so that it overwhelmed most of their instruments and drove them off the scale, making it nearly impossible to get an accurate measurement. All we know is that it was higher than the maximum number the tool was able to measure. The EMP caused electrical damage on the Hawaiian Islands, 900 miles or 1,400 kilometers away from Johnston. It knocked out streetlights, triggered burglar alarms, and damaged telephone communications. After the Starfish Prime detonation, bright auroras were observed in the detonation area, as well as in the southern conjugate region at the Samoan Islands. A very large area of the Pacific was illuminated by the auroral phenomena from far south of the south magnetic conjugate area through the burst area to far north of the north conjugate area. This confirmed the theory that charged particles from the nuclear blast would be carried over great distances by the Earth's magnetic field lines. It was also said that resonant light from the explosion hung in the night sky over Johnston Island for several days. High-energy electrons from the explosion became trapped in the Earth's magnetic field.
Okay, so let me tell you what ended up happening. All the countries in the world got together and they signed an agreement that they would never again attempt to shoot a nuclear bomb into space at the firmament, whatever you want to call it. And somebody asked something about, is this one of those flat earther videos? No, it's not. No, it's not. This video is on one topic. Nobody and nothing has ever left the Earth's actual atmosphere. That's what this video is. I'm not confusing two different topics. I'm talking about a provable scientific data that essentially sort of blew my mind, because in my mind, I imagined astronauts and spaceships actually going to space. And space, to me, was outside of the Earth's atmosphere. Now, I grew up in the church. I understood what the Bible said, but I didn't actually understand what God was saying when he said he created, a moon and the sun, and he put them in the firmament. Now, today, I have proven to you that the moon and the sun is in the firmament. They have shot nukes as high as they can, and it's still not outside the Earth's atmosphere. So we talked about Project Fishbowl. It was important because it was just another attempt to destroy the firmament. Oh, thanks, guys. And here's the thing. Here is the thing about Project Fishbowl. They wanted to break the firmament. Why? Because it is temporary. And learning that was very hard, because I was like, what do you mean? The firmament is temporary. But first, this is a clip of Hillary Clinton. And this is Hillary Clinton basically talking about the dome. Now, it makes it sound like she's talking about the dome where women could be presidents. But honestly, I got chill bumps listening to her, because I honestly believe she's talking about the firmament here.
We weren't able to shatter that hardest glass ceiling this time. Thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it. And the light is shining through like never before, filling us all with the hope and the sure knowledge that the path will be a little easier next time. We weren't able to shatter that highest.
And I think she's actually talking about that highest dome in the sky, the firmament, because it is important that we understand this. Everything from our maps. Most of you already know that when you look at a map, countries are misrepresented by size. It makes America look much bigger than it actually is. It makes South America look much smaller than it actually is. And there's reasons for all of that.
This may seem like a nonsensical, hypothetical idea with no basis in reality, but the truth is far from that. As it turns out, the United States actually did that. Not surprising at all. In 1962, the United States launched a nuclear bomb in space called
We talked about this.
Starfish Prime just to see what happens. What could possibly go wrong, right? It was enormous.
So when I tell you guys that climate change is real, I mean it. Climate change is real, but it's not because of you. It's not because of me. It is because we are trapped underneath a firmament, and only so much can go in and out of that firmament. I do believe it is permeable, or we would all suffocate. I mean, let's be honest. What else do I want to show you guys about this? Because I found some really interesting things. Oh, rainbows. Let's talk about how rainbows arch, because I'm fixing to blow your mind on that one.
The rainbow-shaped arch. There was a video on TikTok, a guy's like, he had like a glass sheet like we have here, and the sun was shining in, and it was like along the edge of a glass. And when it was reflecting, it reflected a straight line. What your rainbow was showing was, I guess, the prism of which it was reflecting the light through. So if it's straight, it'll reflect straight. So if the rainbow is arched, it's got to be shining through something that's arched.
Exactly.
If you enjoyed this clip and want to hear
something
more,
that's
subscribe
arched, because the firmament is arched. And now, like I said, I'm not here to debate flat earth, globe shaped. I told my husband, I said that honestly, to me, it has no bearing on my belief in God, because everything in the Bible is true. What blew my mind was to read that God's word in Genesis 1:16 through 17, it legitimately tells us that the moon and the sun is within the firmament. And now today I proved that through science. So God's word is true, folks. That was written 6,000 years ago, parts of that book. And here we are proving it with science today. I do believe it is arched. So whether that's arched over something that's flat or it's arched over something that's round, doesn't even matter, because it's still over us, protects us. Now, I did find some super interesting stuff about the Arctic, and this will lead into what some of you call the flat earther stuff. But I do feel like I need to share this to you, because there is something going on in the Arctic that does have to do with us, with our firmament, with our solar system.
To McMurdo Research Station in August of 1998. The military unit attached to McMurdo was small, and we didn't have our own separate facilities. We didn't have a PX or a media center. There was no chapel or chaplain, and we didn't have our own separate mailroom. We just had to share the same facilities with the scientists and researchers. They had two different kinds of ice they worked on and studied. This is where it gets interesting. One kind of ice was the normal kind that we've all seen. They took cores of it out of boreholes in the ground. Just like normal ice, it was mostly clear and sometimes white, and it would melt into liquid water if it got warm. The whole area of Antarctica is covered in this kind of ice, but that wasn't their main kind of ice. The only time I ever saw them actually studying normal ice was when a film crew from National Geographic came by. The rest of the time, which was most of the time, the scientists were studying something they called sky ice. This stuff was totally different. One of the researchers that I was friends with showed me a piece of sky ice. You couldn't touch the stuff with your bare hands because it was so cold. And it wasn't clear or white like normal ice. It was solid blue. That's why they call it sky ice, because it was the exact same color as the sky. The stuff was so cold, it would instantly freeze your skin if you touched it, like hundreds of degrees below zero, way colder than the normal ice that was outside. He had to carry it in a metal bottle that was kind of like a thermos. It felt lighter than a piece of normal ice of the same size, like it wasn't very heavy at all. It almost felt like you could throw it up in the air and it would just float back down. Also, a little flexible when I tried to bend it. It didn't break like normal ice would. Here's the really weird part. It didn't melt into water. When it got warm, because we had it inside, it just started to shrink. It got smaller and smaller, but my glove never got wet, and there was no water on the floor. The stuff just turned into thin air. when it got warm and vaporized. They had to study the stuff right there in Antarctica because it was almost impossible to keep it cold enough during transit. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. So I asked my friend where they get the sky ice from, and he said it comes from the wall. Apparently there's a huge wall of sky ice in Antarctica. He said it was hundreds of miles inland from the coast. He said it was the biggest natural structure in the world. In the 1960s, the U.S. Army had a plan to bore a tunnel into the wall, but they didn't have a boring machine that could handle the super cold temperatures, so they had a whole testing project in Greenland where they developed ice tunnels and invented new boring machines that could operate in super cold temperatures. So this was back when forming NASA and all the other things that were kind of strange, the Antarctic Treaty. Around that time, they were practicing to bore into the sky ice. Then, once they had the new boring machine figured out, they brought it to the ice wall. The machine bored a tunnel 5 or 10 miles into the wall, but that they never broke through the other side of the wall. They still don't know how thick the wall is, even to this day. At first, the floor of the tunnel was solid rock, but after a mile or two in, the floor was sky ice. Map of the wall in Antarctica, except the map was all flat and showed the wall going all the way up over the whole earth. Very interesting information given what we know surrounds us. We know that the firmament's not just made out of ice. It's something special. That could just be something near the foundation to prevent you from going all the way to it. Those little nuclear bombs they shot at the firmament, they can't break it. They've tried. If they could, they would, but they can't. To McMurdo.
Trust me, if they could, they would, and they have tried. And I agree. Thank you, Chanel. Great question. She says, you know what's always got me stumped? There's always these wars going on, yet we have treaties to keep Antarctica safe, and no one is allowed there. I need to know. And I do understand what you mean. Trust me, I do. I'd love to know what's there. I did want to share that to you because this leads up to our next topic. The firmament is permeable and it is temporary. And we know this because the Bible tells us that the Lord will shatter the firmament when his throne comes down. And what will come out of the sky? Hail. If you think about hail, what is hail? It's frozen water. It's ice, balls, folks, just like what this guy was just talking about. Now, here comes the good one.
Good. He separates the waters and the land and makes the plants grow from the land. He says that's good. He puts the stars, sun, and moon in the heavens, and he says that's good. That's true of every day except the second day. There's no pronouncement that it's good. And I think one of the reasons for that is because that barrier that separates the throne room of God and the lower realm of man is not permanent. That's going to be shattered. We actually see a picture of this shattering in the book of Revelation. In some places in the Bible, that firmament, which looks like a solid dome over the earth, is pictured as an ice dome. Hail is a symbol of the shattering of that firmament, the shattering of that barrier. It can be shattered from God's side when God comes in wrath against his enemies or against unfaithful Israel. He breaks through the firmament and he comes with a storm of fire, lightning, and hail. It's hail because he's breaking that ice dome from above, and that's what we see in the book of Revelation. We see several times where hailstorms appear, especially at the end of chapter 16 in Revelation, where there's a hailstorm with hailstones that are 100 pounds each. And the reason for that is because the whole story of Revelation is about the throne of God, which begins above the firmament with the sea of glass, the firmament sea, the heavenly waters in front of the throne. From that position, when John first sees the throne, to the position at the end of the book where God's throne has come through the firmament, shattered the ice dome, and come down to dwell on the earth. And that's the final condition of creation. When that barrier between God and man is gone, the veil is lifted, and the bride and the bridegroom live in fellowship and communion forever. And in darkness, that's good. He separates.
We know God is going to destroy the firmament. Now, somebody just asked a great question. What about meteor showers we get? Well, what did I show you guys earlier? The moon is under the firmament, and so is the sun. So most of what we consider the solar system is all under this firmament. It's all within it's all within the firmament. The stars, God tells you in Genesis 1, 16 and 17, the moon, the sun, and the stars are under the firmament. It's in the Bible. Yet we're led to believe, because if you think about it, no one ever comes up to you and says, hey, astronauts leave the Earth's atmosphere. They don't lie to you. They tell you the truth. Astronauts go to space, but the definition of space is very fluid because nobody knows where the firmament actually ends. They haven't got that far yet. They shoot things at it. They try. That's why I really believe that clip of Hillary Clinton saying that glass dome has millions of cracks. Yeah, I bet it does. I bet as closer we get to the end times, the more cracks are appearing in the firmament. So it does make you think, okay, so I'm going to show you guys something. Some of you, this does again have to do with flat earthers, but this is Brazil. Did you guys realize 11 million people in Brazil, honestly, with their whole heart, believe the earth is flat?
Hoje no Brasil estamos falando de mais de 11 milhões de pessoas que já entendem que a Terra é plana. E essas pessoas, não digo todas, mas uma boa parte está pesquisando, está questionando. Por quê? Porque não queremos viver numa mentira. Os terraplanistas costumam fazer suas experiências, suas pesquisas. Quando a gente vai no horizonte, a gente vai na praia, a gente vai numa montanha e vai tirar foto do mar ou do horizonte, a gente vê que ele é sempre plano, ele tem sempre um nível, ele nunca faz uma curva como eles mostram nos livros de ciência.
So I'm not here to debate whether or not the earth is round, whether or not the earth is flat. Like I told you guys earlier, to me, it absolutely makes no difference. The proof is in the pudding. There is a firmament that surrounds us. The moon, the stars, the sun, everything's under that. We have today shown you that in the Bible. We have shown you that through the science. I do want to discuss maps because I told my husband this. The most interesting thing to me about cartographers or map makers is that they've got all these different type. Hold on, let me type this in because I'm going to show you all a picture of something real quick. They have all these different type of maps, right? Maps for people who are on ships for navigation, maps for airplanes, maps for this. Yet the UN has its own type of map. And its map is actually the flat earthers map. That is the symbol that the UN uses. You see this? This is the UN symbol, my friend. That is the flat earthers map. Do you see that? Of all the maps that the United Nations could have chosen, they chose this. They chose the map that represent what people call the flat earth. The concept that this is like, like round, right? That this has got an ice wall around it that then domes over it. And that's the center of the earth. It's flat. It's got a dome and then a firmament over it. And within that firmament, you've got the stars, the sun, and the moon. That is what flat earthers believe. And that is actually the map that the United Nations uses. So you make of that whatever you want. So I'm just showing that to you guys because I told my husband that. I was like, all the different types of maps that the United Nations could have chosen, they chose the flat earthers map because everything is in front of you. Now, I want to show you a quick video on cartographers and how maps were made, why they were made the way they were, and you make your own mind up.
It's everywhere. Atlases, school walls, even Google Maps. It's also very, very wrong, and it's been distorting our view of the world for centuries. This is a Mercator projection. It's one of the most common projections used for world maps. This guy, Gerardus Mercator, created it in 1569 to help with ship navigation. The map was revolutionary because it straightened both lines of latitude and longitude, which was great for sailing. All you had to do was draw a line to where you wanted to go on the map and follow your compass. But to make a navigation-friendly map, the projection distorts land masses the closer they are to the poles. That gives us the wrong idea about the relative size and maybe even the importance of some regions. This creates what some map makers call the Greenland problem. This is Greenland on Mercator's map. It's huge. Here, Greenland is bigger than the entire continent of South America. The same thing happens with Alaska. The state looks bigger than the entire country of Mexico. The farther land is from the equator on a Mercator map, the more stretched out it looks. In reality, South America is 8 times the size of Greenland, and Mexico is actually bigger than Alaska. For the same reason, this is what 2,000 miles looks like on a Mercator map, but so is this. It's the same distance. The fault is in the map. This happens because map makers have to rely on mathematical formulas to project the surface of the Earth, a sphere, onto the surface of a map, a plane. Calculus and complex algebra eventually improved map projections, yet the Mercator stubbornly remained a popular general world map. While it made for a great navigation map, it was also being used as a geographic map in classrooms and atlases. The distorted view of Earth's land masses in a Mercator's projection became how people saw the world. Map makers and geographers were not happy. Everything started to change in the mid-20th century. There was a world war, and more airplanes were being used than ever before. Editorials published in the New York Times in the 40s called for the Mercator to be discarded and reminded readers the grossness of its errors should not be forgotten. In a series of orthographic maps in 1942 and 43, Fortune magazine declared the Mercator is no map for global war, and it was a dangerous map to use in studying global strategy. An expose on cartography Life published around the same time called the Mercator a mental hazard in a war that is plotted on great circles across the land and sea and through the air. Perhaps nowhere was the rejection of Mercator's projection more apparent than with Richard Eads Harrison's illustrations. The architect turned illustrator for Fortune magazine created maps truly fit for a world dominated by flight, offering revolutionary views of the planet as World War II raged. With Harrison's maps, it was clear just how obvious the United States' isolation was, or how many neighbors Europe had. It was at this time that maps were starting to take on a new use: persuasion.
So I just wanted to share you guys, show y'all that the maps that we all grew up with are wrong. They're wrong. They misinterpret size, position. They may have the longitude and the latitude correct. That may be all that they have correct. And I just wanted to leave these thoughts with you today, that we have an amazing God who created a beautiful universe for us. And don't let anybody ever tell you again that we've had people in outer space, because the truth is nobody and nothing has ever left Earth's atmosphere. So let me read through some of you guys' comments over here and let me answer as many as I can before I run. Somebody said many worlds is in the realm of possibility, I reckon. Not sure where I am on the multiverse theories, though. Jason Ruth, scripture does not say 12-sided. Tony Gotham says it is written, the truth shall set thee free. And that is when God shows us truth, we get so excited. Fortnite Family says, because they changed it. Look how hard it was to pull off the hoax. Somebody else said we basically live in a snow globe, and there are maps that show the real Earth. I do believe there are maps that show the real Earth, everyone. And I agree, Gypsy Soul. All of this has been hidden in plain sight. I cannot explain to you how shocked I was last night
also define space.
When she said this.
Measure both general Lyman alpha radiation and the geocorona, which extended far beyond what we were expecting. So while this discovery is remarkable in many ways, not the least of which is that technically no one has ever left Earth's atmosphere, it won't change space travel for us in most practice. Air Force also defines.
When I heard that, I cannot explain to you the expression that crossed my face. I said, what does she mean? Nobody's left the atmosphere. What does she mean? And then I began to dig, and I realized that all of my life, I, like you, have been lied to. We've been lied to. We've never left the atmosphere. We never will leave the atmosphere. And the one time that something comes through that firmament, we'll be living out the book of Revelation, and the Lord's throne will be coming through the firmament. Now, I do want to see if I can find this for you guys real quick. What was going on with NASA last night? I thought I had it pulled up. I do apologize. Obviously, I didn't, because I was watching the sun thing that was going on last night. It was supposed to be, look at this. When you see this, you're expecting these people to be flying to universes unknown, right? That's what they're not even leaving the atmosphere of the Earth. This is it. NASA's live event that was going on 20 hours ago. This is about the sun, you guys.
To experts and have your questions answered in real time.
Because the sun is in the firmament.
Send them in using the hashtag AskNASA in the comments wherever you're watching. In 2021, NASA's Parker Solar Probe became the first spacecraft to fly through the sun's upper atmosphere, known as the corona. This was the first time any spacecraft had touched a star, providing humanity with unprecedented observations, visiting the only star we can study up close. Now, Parker is about to complete one of its most daring feats yet. On December 24th, 2024, Parker Solar Probe will fly just 3.83 million miles above the sun's surface. If the distance between Earth and the sun was the length of a football field, Parker would be around 4 yards from the end zone. At the closest approach, the spacecraft will be hurtling around the sun at around 430,000 miles per hour. That's fast enough to get from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. in 1 second. This makes Parker the fastest human-made object in history, and it's going to be an amazing achievement. We're keeping an eye on the questions pouring in online, and we'll bring them straight to our experts live on air later on in the show. We also have experts in the comments standing by to answer.
Can you believe that? How fast it's moving. That was yesterday. I was watching that last night. That's when I realized, they're that close to the sun. And then the Lord showed me the clip where the woman said, no one's ever left our atmosphere. And I sat down and I began to dig. I'm like, hold on. If they've never left our atmosphere, did anybody go to the moon? What about this probe that's supposed to be so close to the sun? Is any of this real? And then I found Genesis 1, 16 and 17. And I just began to praise the Lord because it's right there. It's right in front of your face. Blessed are those, how's it go? Blessed are the eyes that see, and blessed are the ears that hear. So you guys be blessed. Have an amazing day. Do your own research. Have fun with this topic. Don't be afraid of it. It's a great question. Go around asking people, hey, has anybody ever left our atmosphere? And watch what people say. Look, yeah, people have gone to space. Well, what is space? And who defines it? Yeah, humanity's, it is way off. Whether or not you believe we've been to the moon or not, the point is we could go to the moon if we chose to. It is within the firmament. So I don't really like to talk about conspiracies that are not provable with the Bible. I'm going to tell you that, guys, I'm not that type of YouTuber. So if that's kind of YouTube videos you really like, I'm really not your person. I am dead set on truth that is provable with the Bible, backed up by science. That is how I like to live my life, because anything past that is just conjecture. You know what I'm saying? But if they wanted to go to the moon, they could. You know why? Because it's within the firmament. And I proved that too. So have an amazing day, guys. Love y'all. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Welcome to the family.